Ah!
Season's greetings, Avery.
Season's great. Which season is it? I mean, it's somewhere between July and December. That must mean it's the spooky season, right?
Absolutely. It's
Heck yeah.
spooky season's upon us. If you're a long-standing watcher of The Green Corner, you will know I'm a bit of a Halloween freak. I like Halloween a lot. It's my favorite season. It's my favorite time of the year. I get weird about it. You know, first cold day of summer, get the Halloween decorations out. It's we're shooting this in September. It's what my house looks like. So I'm one of those guys. You're not quite that level.
No, I mean, I enjoy a good spooking every once in a while, but, you know.
You're like
in passing.
a well-adjusted human adult. I'm
Yeah.
more of a freakish Halloween man-child.
That's. I didn't want to phrase it like that in front of all our fans, but yeah.
That's how I'd probably describe it.
Yeah.
And when it gets to this time of year, I love watching Halloween horror movies. But what is a Halloween horror movie? Because you and I watch horror year-round. We watch
true.
it all the time. To me, and really any definition would fit, it's one of those things, what makes a great Halloween movie? I don't think there's one right answer. I think you know it when you see it. But in general, it's movies set on or around Halloween, or things that evoke the Halloween season, like castles and vampires and spooky woods and all that. So there's not one right answer, but it's usually horror movies that evoke that fall spooky feeling or are literally set on the modern Halloween holiday. That's the type of stuff I like watching around Halloween.
Yeah.
And over the past couple years of watching pretty much a movie a night when it gets to this time of year, I've assembled quite a list. My October watch list has grown over time, and I got a whole back catalog of cozy October fall spooky things to watch. And we've already talked about a number of them on the show. Our first episode was Hell House, which is a Halloween certified banger. It's definitely top of the Halloween October watch list. Last Halloween we talked about Over the Garden Wall, which is pretty much the gold standard. I think it's probably not a wide venture for either of us to say that's the best Halloween content and media attainable.
Yeah.
That's
it.
That's it. That's the Holy Grail. So this year, we're not talking about the Holy Grail of Halloween October watch list stuff. We thought, why don't we take some movies from your weird little October watch list, pick 3 that are kind of off the beaten trail, cult movies, mainstream movies that have been forgotten, weird low budget stuff. Let's pick 3, let's talk about them. And these are movies that I've seen multiple times and you've only seen one once before and the other 2 you'd never even heard of.
Yep.
And we're gonna sit down and talk about those today.
And I was excited because we're getting outside the mainstream, right? I'm more of a surface level horror fan. I've seen a lot of the big famous ones. I've enjoyed them. Obviously, we just did an Alien picture a little bit ago. You've heard of that one? Not very Halloween-y.
No.
So it was fun to kind of look at some deeper cuts, right? To go off the beaten path, find some more some things that live more in the horror genre, a little deeper below the surface. It was a cool little exploration for me.
Yeah, and if you're into my world of being obsessed about Halloween, and you've watched John Carpenter's Halloween and all of the adjacent main Halloween stuff, these are the things you start getting into the, I don't want to say bottom of the barrel,
right.
But you're not talking, if you Google what to watch around Halloween, these aren't going to show up. These are when you've watched all those, then you've watched the next list, and then you're scrounging for more Halloween content.
Like the jazz of Halloween.
yeah, like the discount bargain bin.
Yeah.
No one asked. That's the level of we're gonna go to. So saddle up, grab your cider, get your corn and
Corona. The beer of Halloween.
And come along with us on a spooky, cozy ride into some Halloween watch list recommendations. First up is a little film called Dark Night of the Scarecrow. Let me get my old man notes.
Yeah, so this was the one we started with. This was the one I was going in the coldest. I had heard absolutely nothing about this, including the title, until we were already on the couch. Mm-hmm. Did not know what to expect. You gave me the background that it was a made-for-TV movie from 1981? 81. Yep. Recognized one fella.
Yeah, what's Charles
Durning.
Charles Durning.
Took us a bit. Pappy O'Daniels from A Brother Where Art Thou, and he's also Francis Griffin from Family Guy, Peter's dad.
Okay.
Who he voiced. He's one of the dozens of people who did a voice on Family Guy and then immediately died. So that's a big list.
And he's one of those guys that's like been in 2-3 acting credits a year since 1947.
Yeah, of like IMDb, like 2-star, like alligator monster apocalypse shit. Like he's doing a lot of that. He's kind of an Eric Roberts.
Yeah, or like a Cameron Mitchell.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who's been acting a long time. He is a good actor. He's like, I would say he's a great character actor that's just a working actor and has done everything under the sun, including Dark Knight of the Scarecrow.
And he's our protagonist?
Certainly not our hero.
No, he's the main character. He's a terrible dude.
Wait a minute. I'm not gonna hurt you. Now, you're not afraid of me. I'm the mailman.
There's a man living in this town. I think it's set in Texas. It's somewhere deep south
Somewhere
U.S.
dusty with a lot of farms.
Yeah, deep south U.S. in the desert. Super small town, and there's a man who is mentally handicapped. The performance we don't need to go into in depth.
It's definitely not the most horrific one from that era. It was surprisingly restrained.
It
our
was.
words didn't come out.
No,
but it wasn't like
it's not great. It could have been much worse.
Could have been much worse.
This man's name is Bubba,
Yep.
and he likes hanging out with this young girl from the town because, as it said in the movie, his brain is not really advanced past, the childlike age.
Yep.
So he hangs out with this girl. They're friends. It's completely innocent, but the town doesn't like it.
He's a blight. Like stinkweed and cutworm that you spray and spray to get rid of, but always keep coming back.
And there's an accident early in the movie where the girl gets attacked by a dog. Everyone thinks Bubba did it, and an angry vigilante mob goes out to Bubba's house to try to kill him for this. They've been looking for an excuse to kill Bubba for a long time.
Yeah, they did not need much here.
No,
they didn't, in fact, check if the girl was dead.
Nope. Turns out she was fine. It was a very light push into let's go kill him.
The sheriff's calling for volunteers. Everybody's gonna meet over at the courthouse.
No! We'll do this ourselves. Let's get the dogs and the guns.
Yeah.
So Bubba's mom tells him to hide. He hides in a scarecrow. They go out into a field with some bloodhounds, figure out he's hidden in the scarecrow, and shoot him a la firing squad to his death.
Yeah.
And the rest of the movie is basically the men who killed him dealing with their guilt and also slowly being picked off one by a mysterious killer. Is it the ghost of Bubba? Is it someone in town trying to set them up? Is it the mom of Bubba? Is it the district attorney? It's a Scooby-Doo-like whodunit of who's the killer. But it's pretty much a conventional slasher after that point of kill off the people who did the wrong, slowly get revenge for all the killings, and that's the rest of the movie. So that's Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. What do you think about this picture, Avery?
Pretty easily my least favorite of the three we watched, which is a fairly high bar.
I would agree with that.
The other two are definitely more interested to talk about. This one had some interesting bits. At a certain point, it is a sort of made-for-TV proto-slasher from 1981. It's not particularly gory. It's not particularly subversive or interesting in the story. There's a couple things. The biggest thing for me is just that it is flipped in terms of like the good guys and bad guys. Mm-hmm. How the protagonists are these four guys who just lynched someone.
Yeah.
And like they're getting got. That, other movies have done this, but where your main characters are all terrible people and you're kind of actively rooting against them, but still kind of in suspense.
Yeah.
Other movies have done this, but it's not that common, and especially for something that's so like old-timey and by the numbers, it was interesting, I thought.
I agree. I think that's the weirdest thing about the movie. Is because we were about halfway through the movie and I'm like, these are the protagonists?
Yeah.
I kept waiting for like a hero to show up.
Yeah.
And you think maybe because the district attorney knows these guys killed Bubba, even though they get off in court.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, is he going to be the new main character? And then he's gone.
Yeah.
And the main characters are just these four old, shitty, sweaty guys who are evil.
To be fair, three of them are just kind of lackeys, and they still lynched a guy for sure. Not defending, but
they're all like drunks. They're not great to their wives. They're not like good dudes.
No.
Oh, well, I was just noticing the time. It's Tuesday, and Mrs. Bunch will be having fried chicken over at the boarding house where I live.
And the lead guy is really bad.
Charles Durnings's awful. He starts out as essentially Newman from Seinfeld, where he's like a shockingly villainous postman.
When I get through with him,
You're wasting your time. He's an idiot. He can't remember. You ought to know that by now.
And then they just keep dripping out that he just keeps doing like worse and worse things, and they like drop that he might be a pedophile.
Yeah, they like
an
allude.
hour in.
I've seen how you look at that little girl.
They allude to it and then definitely don't convince you he's not?
No, it's just we talked about it when we were watching that it's like the first time someone's revealed as a pedophile, and we're just like, yeah,
Yeah, it seems
there's
like
no evidence, but that checks out.
yeah, I can see it.
No one's afraid of mailman.
Yeah, it's weird. He's kind of our protagonist.
Yeah.
And he's like the worst guy and not likable at all. So I want to frame this in terms of other horror movies because I was trying to figure out what is this movie? What is this like? Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th are really nice parallels with this movie because both of those movies, the killer is taking revenge. Nightmare on Elm Street, parents killed Freddy because he was a child murderer.
Right.
When they were younger, they burned him alive. Freddy has come back as a ghost to get vengeance on their children. So what that allows us as the audience to do is be like, I get why Freddy's seeking revenge, but the people he's getting revenge on haven't done anything wrong, so I can root for them. I think you can probably see where I'm going with this. Friday the 13th, Jason's mom is killing camp counselors because camp counselors let her son drown because they were having sex.
Right.
So now she takes revenge on camp counselors having sex.
Spoilers!
She takes revenge on any camp counselors having sex at the campground. She's going to kill them because it reminds her of the death of her son. But in both movies, the protagonists are not the ones who did the wrong.
Yeah.
It's being taken out on them even though they weren't the ones that were actually guilty. So we understand the killer motivation, but we're given the grace to root for our protagonists. Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, there's no separation. The protagonists are the ones who did the wronging. It's not their kids that are being killed off one by one. It's just them, which leaves us with evil protagonists that are not likable. But it doesn't not work? Like, it still kind of worked?
They found like a mystery angle that was like a little bit interesting.
Right.
At least first of all, there's we don't know what's up with the Scarecrow. I mean, you don't get much confirmation as to what's actually going on there until very late in the movie. We're not going to spoil that. There's also, and I wish I could come up with the original reference for this, but I'm sure there's one of the excellent movies from the 30s or 40s I haven't seen. This is a thing, but like the group kind of coming apart at the seams over a secret, right? Like I feel like this is like a World War II thing, kinda. Like maybe this is what Maltese Falcon is. I'm sorry, I don't know this reference.
They're all ridden with guilt, and it's slowly unraveling.
It's like it's the group dynamics as they're like falling apart and blaming each other, and you're finding out who's like the partially redeemable ones versus like the absolute miserable ones. Like this is a dynamic that has been done before, but isn't common, I guess. Like what's the hook hand?
Candy?
I know what you did last summer.
Oh, sure.
Kind of like that, right? Because they
Yeah.
kill a guy and he comes back and gets them,
Yeah.
right? Obviously that's kind of a crap movie, but same idea.
And it's interesting that this movie focuses on that. Because, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, the kids don't even know why they're being attacked at first.
Right.
They figure it out. It's all just them trying to live, try to escape. To have the movie really focuses on the guilt and trauma of this event. It's not focused on the kills. The kills are kind of fun, and there's some interesting
81.
some interesting
Fine.
sequences, but it's not Friday the 13th.
No.
It's not fun kills. That's not why you're there. The movie is more like there's a court procedural part that's like about
It
assigning
does have a
guilt
lot of
and-
elements of real movies.
It takes itself very seriously, which is weird that kind of works in this low-budget movie that doesn't have any right tackling the subject matter.
Sam, these men are members of the community. They're not criminals.
But, Your Honor, they went out.
Sam,
It focuses on the guilt of these men and how it weighs down their lives instead of being about them getting killed.
Well, the tone is very consistent. I mean, if you had this like goofy, like Jeepers Creepers CGI Scarecrow monster, it would really clash with like these are just like adult businessmen kind of tone. But it isn't. The fact that it's like the supernatural stuff is so downplayed and vague, it even with the sort of limited budget and the old timiness of it, it all feels very consistent.
Yeah.
There's nothing that like stands out as like jarring, or the fact that it's a horror movie isn't shoehorned in, right?
No.
And it doesn't devolve by the third act where like interesting characters and then it turns into just monster fests towards the end, right? Another kind of point towards it being more of a real movie, one thing I really liked is that the characters make really smart decisions throughout.
Especially Charles Durning
Yeah.
as Mr. Hazeling.
Yeah, there's very little of like, let's split up and check the abandoned basement, right? Like, in a way that works. Like, they still get got, right? But every time you're like, oh, you should, and they're already doing it. And you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, like
okay.
when the three guys show up at Mr. Hazelrig's house, the main guy, and they're like, there's a scarecrow in my yard that I didn't put there. Someone knows we killed Bubba.
The Scarecrow The same one. Bullet holes, everything, just like before. Except now it's filled with straw.
He's like, it's probably the district attorney that told us he's gonna get us and try to find evidence.
Sam Willock.
The district attorney? Why?
Because he's trying to shake you. And you did just exactly what he expected.
And then all three of the guys and me and Reed are like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like, that's pretty
That's what
reasonable.
I would think if that was real life.
Yeah,
I
and
wouldn't
he's like,
think
so
it's
the
a
best
monster.
thing we can do is just go home and not associate with each other. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, yeah, that's pretty sound.
Go home and keep your mouth shut. For God's sakes, don't bunch up like this. You got guilty written all over you.
So yeah, it is kind of like a real movie. And I think
Yeah.
I do want to address this. This movie sounds very serious and intense. It does take itself seriously, but why is this on my October watch list? It is a good Halloween movie, I think. It's not as much as the next two.
No.
And especially because it's set in a desert that is kind of a non-typical Halloween location.
It's a scarecrow. It's about a scarecrow. There's cornfields.
There's
It's-
pumpkins. There's
Yeah,
tractors mowing over pumpkins.
there is
there's
pumpkin
There's a
scene.
full Halloween party.
Yeah.
So I would say that even though it's less evocative of Halloween than maybe the other two on our list, it is still very much a Halloween movie. The director took clear steps to set it around Halloween, to have corn, scarecrows, pumpkins, Halloween parties. That is like,
Yeah.
they didn't need to do that, and that it's very intentional, and it makes it feel, it gives you that spooky, cozy Halloween atmosphere, even though it's set in the middle of the desert.
Yeah. And I also think the plot is very kind of campfire story-y in a way that
Scooby-Doo
feels...
or-
yeah,
yeah.
Scooby-Doo, in a way that feels Halloween, right? It's not like there are plenty of horror movies that are incompatible with... I mean, Alien is not a Halloween movie.
No.
You can't tell that when they're around a campfire.
No.
Right? There's something about this movie and the fact that it's like this all very like grounded, real. This could have happened in your hometown when you were a kid. That I think that contributes to feeling Halloween-y for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And it feels, I would say overall, this movie, it's not like a great movie.
No.
This isn't like an excellent film everyone has to see. But if you want Halloween-y stuff, this is a solid entry. And I think a consistent thing in this movie is it's like, it tries like 13% harder than you'd think they should.
Yeah, and makes way fewer mistakes.
Yeah, like every time there's a chance that you'd think like, oh, it's a low budget movie, they're gonna do this, they do something a
like-
little more high effort.
They're gonna go meet Betty the shopkeeper, and she's the worst actress you've ever seen in your life. Like that doesn't really happen in this.
No.
Or does it happen? You would expect it.
Yeah, like I guess one example that we talked about when we were watching this on the couch, the guy, the angry mob is rolling up to Bubba's house to like confront him because they
Yeah.
want to kill him. If you're in a B movie, low budget, made for TV movie, you're just gonna shoot that as like, here's the guys walking up to the house. For some reason, they have like a crane shot
Yeah.
where the camera like nicely swoops into the group walking up on the house, and it's like 3 seconds, there's camera movement, and I'm like, why'd they do that?
Yeah.
Who took the time and effort to do that on this made-for-TV movie? And there's all these little elements of the filmmaking that are just like, they tried a little more than you think they would. Just a little bit. Like another nice detail that we had a good laugh about on the couch is one of the kills ends with a guy, minor spoilers, getting put into a wood chipper.
Right.
We don't see him go into the wood chipper, there's no gore, and we were both kind of like, they didn't show it. And then it hard cuts to someone getting a spoonful of jam, of red jelly jam, dropped on their plate. Perfect comedic timing.
It was good.
That was beautiful. And those little nuggets of effort, I think, are what give this movie some life. It's a solid movie that's just elevated a little bit above the pack by just like good decision making, actual strong technical filmmaking, and the good kind of spooky Halloween atmosphere woven throughout.
More preserves, Mr. Hazelbree?
We also haven't talked about the strongest point in the movie, which is, of course, the hats.
The hats in this movie are out of control.
Hopefully we can just show a screenshot, but like
I'll give you a little smash cut of the hats.
Oh my goodness, like they just found a bin of costume hats and we're like, all right, we need to make each character easily identifiable. We're gonna, each one of you take the silliest hat you can find, wear it every scene.
During the screening, you said it's like Lego hats.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to unsee that. It's literally like they found silly hats and they clipped them on and then they wear them the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it's like the only way you can distinguish the characters. There's the guy with the bowler hat. There's the postman hat is crazy.
It's like a plastic
postman
hard
hat.
safari hat.
The red polka dot hat is obviously,
And it has like plot significance later.
does.
So yeah.
the red polka dot hat is the star of the show.
Didn't hear you come in.
We're moving 7 years later into our second little pick, Night of the Demons, 1988.
And this was a treat. I was, again, not really aware of this. I realized about halfway in that this was a movie that you had put on at a party I hosted on silent.
Like at a Halloween party?
Yeah, at a Halloween party.
God.
Muted. Yeah, it was, I can't remember if it was one I did or you did, but anyway.
It sounds like something I do.
We were at a Halloween party and this was on mute, and there was a couple of scenes that I remember I looked over and were on. It's a good movie for that. Other than that, again, I knew very little about this. I've never heard of the name, and that genuinely surprises me. Because that's kind of where I'll lead off, is I don't know how this movie isn't more famous.
Wow, but this is booby, sis. If you keep on going, you'll have to hire someone just to tie your shoes.
Yeah, and this, of the three movies, this is the most mainstream pick. Like, this was a movie that was in theaters.
Yeah.
It's a movie that, like, I asked my dad. He's like, I think I probably saw it.
Yeah.
Like, it was one of those. It's not like Dark Knight of the Scarecrow and our third movie are a whole other level of low budget. This was like a real theatrical movie.
And it feels like it. It's definitely like the best of the three. Like, you may not have enjoyed it the most, but it's for sure the best. Like,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it probably is the best of the three. I think. Well, let's give a quick plot synopsis because it's a very simple story.
This is the most by the numbers horror movie plot.
Relax. I just want to look good for the boys.
A group of horny teens go to a spooky abandoned mansion on Halloween night to party, and then demons show up and start possessing them.
Because they want to do a seance.
Yeah, they do a seance, so demons show up, and then they start killing each other because they're possessed by demons, and then our heroes try to escape the haunted house.
Yeah.
That's it.
A funeral parlor? Way out here?
Well, sure, it's nice and cozy, right next to the old cemetery.
I think with this movie, the best way I can sum up how this movie felt to me is it's like the episode of like Futurama that's set in a haunted house.
Right.
Where, yes, like the plot beats are the most simplistic you can possibly make them, and that's on purpose.
Right.
And then they just riff on that.
Yeah.
In just a really clever way for an hour and a half. And it was great. It was so much fun.
Good evening. Allow me to introduce myself.
Yeah, Count Dingleberry, the flaming asshole of Transylvania.
Like all the set, it's such a simple plot that all the set dressing, be the wacky characters or the fun set design or the crazy monster makeup, that can really shine through because your brain doesn't even have to think about the plot for a second. It's just like you already know what the movie is.
Yeah.
Or could it be that Raj here just had too much cold beer and blew us a cool, stiff breeze right out of his butthole?
We were cracking up watching this together. This is a hilarious movie.
I don't, like, I hope this hits everyone else as hard as it hit us. Like, I don't know. But yeah, this movie is hilarious.
Yeah, are you dating her for her personality? Because she has big cha-chas.
And when we're watching it, and when we talked a little bit afterwards, it's such a quintessential 80s horror film that it actually borders into, like, is this satirical? Or is this just the best example of 80s tropes ever? And it's still not totally clear to me.
Yeah.
But it's such a well-executed movie of 80s tropes, of like all of them, all the tricks in the book, that it starts to feel, like we were saying, almost like Cabin in the Woods. Where it's like it's almost becoming a commentary on these types of movies because it's such a textbook example of one.
I can't believe we're gonna party here.
Neither can I.
I honestly don't know, and I'm curious to ask someone who like followed this movie and saw it in theaters, because there's three explanations, right? One, it is just a totally straight up horror movie, and it's just not aged very well.
Yeah.
Which I don't think so, but maybe.
Yeah.
Or most people saw it that way, but the director thought so, and in hindsight, we can see that it actually was a parody that just strayed pretty close, a la something like Starship Troopers.
Right.
Or it was actually just a parody. And I don't know.
I don't know.
I go tell that pretty little piece you call your sister that handsome hunk Sal's here. And tell her I brung my pet snake for her to play with.
The reason this is confusing is because it is so funny.
Yeah.
And it plays with the tropes in a way that you're like, did they know? Like a great example, they're rolling up on Hull House, I think is the name of the house. Obviously a play on Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
Hull House? Jay!
They're pulling up on Hull House, and like one guy in the back seat who hasn't had any lines yet gives like an SNL skit level of exposition about a haunted house. This guy has not talked yet.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, look at that spooky house. Can't believe we're going there. And he's like, actually.
The Hall family met a pretty gruesome end, didn't they?
They sure did. As a matter of fact, it was on Halloween night. One of them went crazy and slaughtered the entire family, then committed suicide.
And gives us like a 200-year history of this house and the indigenous people that had legends about it and the family who got murdered there and all these like details.
Yeah, but even before the first white settlers colonized this area, this strip of land already had a bad rep.
And he kept going to the point that you're like, this is a bit.
For centuries, the ancient Indian tribes that used to live around this area would never set foot on this side of the underground creek.
But it's never insincere. Which
No.
I guess it's like, okay, like broad strokes, that sounds like scary movie, right?
Yeah.
But it takes itself seriously. Like,
Yeah.
It doesn't break character.
No.
Supposedly the evil spirits that haunt the land can't cross over running water or something.
And there's so many moments like that.
Just some of the dialogue choices, I just like made me laugh so hard, but I can't tell if it was a joke or like at least the director was telling the actors like ham it up, right?
Yeah.
Be the most like you're just the dumb goofy jock guy.
Go big.
You're just the cool greaser guy. Just do it like you're on a high school play. Just go all the way, right? But I don't know if they thought it was funny. I honestly don't.
Oof! Somebody fired the maid.
Yeah, somebody did. The whole family maid was killed along with the rest of them. Someone managed to roast her.
Well, let's talk about some things that are funny
Yeah.
in this movie, because I wrote a few down.
As did I.
Stooge, who's the pig.
Yep.
Hey, that great Stooge. Now look what you've done.
Typical! Shut up and drive, bitch!
Has some of the great... I don't know who this guy is.
No.
He's like a John Belushi type. Some of his line delivery.
Turn here!
Well, okay, when he gets mad, one girl gets straight up haunted, possessed by demons, sees like a ghost in the mirror. She freaks out and falls over and breaks the mirror. And he like berates her for it.
Bester and fuckwads! Ugh! You cannot take this bitch anywhere!
His lines throughout the movie just are impeccable.
And I don't even like you couldn't write this character if you were trying to write a comedy. Like I've seen like, you know, college boner comedies and like there's not like Jonah Hill from Superbad does not make me laugh this hard.
No.
I don't know, like I don't get it.
Stooge is a fat pig.
Maybe I'm in the mood for pork tonight.
Sal the Greaser. One of our favorite moments. There's a point where like a ghost is being ominous to him and keeps trying to give like a spooky last word, and he just keeps responding.
Yeah, I think
He's like, I'm going home, and she's like, you already are home.
Good night now. I'm going home.
You are home, Sal.
And like you think it's gonna fade to black, and he goes, no, this isn't my home. I live in a nice home. There's plastic sheeting on all the furniture.
This dirty dive don't spell home to me. I live in a nice house, you know, with plastic slipcovers on the furniture.
Roger's amazing. Because
Yeah.
I think we try to talk about tropes, because this movie plays with tropes. Sometimes it just does the trope to a T. Like
Yeah.
our main character is the traditional final girl. She's like the virginal white female teenager who's gonna live to the end and she's innocent, she doesn't want to have sex. She's just the trope to a T.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jay.
Oh, come on, Judy.
Then you got Roger, who is the one black cast member in the
Yeah.
whole main cast. And obviously the trope in horror movies as old as time is that the black guy is gonna die first.
Right.
And it's such a well-known trope that modern meta horror films riff on this. They make parodies and jokes about how the only black guy in the horror movie is always gonna be like, I'm getting out of here because I'm gonna
Yeah.
get killed. They were doing that in this movie in '88. He just immediately is like, this situation is like super dangerous.
Makes me, like, I don't know. Like, how many times had this happened by then for this to be like a trope worth commenting
Yeah,
on?
like he just leaves.
This is a house of the dead, and I'm getting out now before it's too late.
Wow!
And he goes to the car and like locks the doors. I'm like, and then you're like, and then he's fine.
Yeah, and like we talked about in the last movie, how every character is behaving pretty smart and
Yeah.
reacting normally. In this movie, by design, nobody is, except him.
Except Roger.
At every point, when everyone else is like, oh no, a ghost, he's like, okay, lock the door, grab this, we gotta find this, and get out the window, and like, I'm gonna throw you this, like, every time.
Please get me out of here!
Sure thing, Judy, stand back!
Wait! What else got her?
Come on, Raj, who else could it be?
There's the scene where the like demon woman's coming down the hallway and the two like white people are like paralyzed by fear and like against the wall, they can't move, and Roger just fucking takes off down the hallway and just jumps out a window.
Yeah.
You won't get me!
He just doesn't care. He doesn't follow the horror movie rules. He's just like trying to survive amongst this horror movie of this all-white cast that are acting as stupid as possible. And I'm like, did they know?
Where the fuck is the goddamn gate?
They must have,
It's
like,
so,
to a degree.
it's either the greatest accident ever or it's actually really smartly written, and I can't tell.
And, okay, so this movie's very funny. It takes itself the right level of seriously where it feels closer to something like Airplane that doesn't break character than it does to something like Scary Movie.
Yeah.
The other piece of it, and like a byproduct of that is, like, this movie isn't terrifying, but it is actually kind of scary. There are effective moments of monsters and of like messed up things happening that did actually get me.
Yeah, there were a couple moments where we went like, ooh.
Yeah, and
some
it's
good
just
gore
enough
effects.
to feel like a haunted house, right?
Yeah.
You're not like terrified the whole time.
No.
But just enough that it's not Scary Movie. You actually are
there's
worried for the characters at moments and like rooting for them to escape, and like they go above and beyond. There's a couple of the character deaths that are bad enough that you're like, oh.
Yeah, like there's
Jesus.
an eye gouging.
Yeah.
That's great practical effects.
There's a tongue biting off.
Yeah.
There's an impalement.
Yeah.
Sal wanted to go, but he decided to stick around.
They go super gory and graphic with it, full horror movie, and then they poke fun at it later. And it perfectly balances the horror and the comedy like the whole time.
Yeah. And we're talking this movie up a lot. I truly don't understand why it hasn't gotten more praise.
I
Because
don't know.
okay, it's not The Thing. You know, it's not like a truly great film that happens to be a horror movie. But just as like a sit-down popcorn horror movie, I'd have a hard time naming 5 movies that were just more of a fun Halloween watch than this.
I'm sure if we try, we can get Jay hard again.
Run, Jimmy!
We talked a lot about why this movie's just a great time to watch. I will say, because this is our Halloween movie roundup, it is a great Halloween movie. You couldn't really ask for anything else. The opening titles are like animated, spooky castle monster ghouls. It's like something out of a dream I've had. Like it's just, it is pure Halloween aesthetic. The whole thing's set at a haunted castle. The sets are great. There's like light filtering in through stained glass windows. There's zombies and demons and seances. And
the first 20 minutes are just extremely cliched, like teen boner comedy stuff. Like setting up the characters, which is funny. It doesn't overstay.
But even when they're doing that, the little party room in the house has like Halloween decorations up, and the set decoration is really nice. There's cobwebs and
they're all in costume, and it's all about like, we're gonna have the greatest Halloween party ever.
Yeah,
like that's
it's like unapologetically Halloween-y, which makes it fun to watch this time of year, and then it's also just a really entertaining movie.
I was gonna say it's never boring, and it could be, right? Because if it is kind of like, you know, it's so by the numbers, and it's kind of one note in terms of it doesn't keep like escalating the stakes that much, but it manages to never drag.
Yeah.
Part of that, it does a good job of giving the characters agency. This is something I'll talk a lot about in horror movies, that a lot of movies that could have achieved much higher kind of fumble, because you get 40 minutes in and you're like, okay, the characters are I'm just waiting for them to die. They have no options left and get it over with, right? And like even really good horror movies, something like Midsummer, like that's kind of somewhere it fumbled.
Sure.
This never felt like that. And even amidst like flipping between like goofy and actually scary and like these crazy powerful demons, you're always like through every moment of the last hour of the movie, you're like, oh, they're gonna get out, right? Like there's always the thing, and it did a good job.
I don't disagree that it never gets boring. I have one point of criticism that I need to raise about this movie, because otherwise I think it's almost perfect for what it's trying to set out. The first half of the movie, the set decoration and the locations are fantastic, because you're out in the spooky courtyard, and then when they go into the house, they're in that room with the fireplace and the old mirror, and it's all super like visually interesting. It's cobwebs, it's got different rooms and lighting. The second half of the movie spends a lot of time in the hallway.
Yeah.
And the hallway is clearly this one like T-shaped hallway set they had that became the hallway for anywhere in the house. So it's characters running through the same hallway set. It did get they overused the hallway a little bit.
I will say I didn't notice this. Like you pointed out, and you're fair enough. That's fair. Some people will notice this.
There's less visually interesting stuff once it gets to what I guess I'll call the hallway sequence.
Yeah.
Once you get there. But I'm nitpicking.
I almost wonder if that's like a trope in itself, because again, that feels like a Futurama bit. Where just they walk down the exact same stretch of hallway 9 times looking for the way out.
Yeah, it's just a nitpick because, I mean, I don't want to like over embellish this. It's obviously a silly Halloween movie.
Yeah.
But for what this movie's trying to do, it's kind of perfect.
I haven't really, like, the last movie was kind of hard to find people to recommend for, but if you want to watch a Halloween movie,
everyone will like this.
Everyone. Once you're like 13, you can get through this movie. There's some messed up stuff for sure, and okay, she should be older to watch it, but like, it's not that scary.
No.
But it is a scary movie, and it's Halloweeny, and it's fun to watch throughout. Like, you just should watch this.
Go watch it.
One line I wrote down was, feels like nostalgia for something I've never actually seen.
That's a great point.
Because there's just so many of these tropes, like the teenagers getting together for the seance, and like the possession, and like the virgin making it to the end. Like, I understand this is out there in real movies. I haven't seen this. I don't know where this comes from.
Of all 3 of these tonight, if you're like, I'm not gonna watch these movies, I'm just gonna watch these assholes talk about them, this is the one you should watch.
Yeah.
This is like the one to throw on with your friends, have a Halloween movie night, and you will have fun and you will laugh, because this movie's hilarious, it's fun, it's silly, it's everything you want in a Halloween
just like,
movie.
if you've always been curious about Friday the 13th and Halloween and the other Nightmare on Elm Street, but you're just like, that's a little too like gory and serious.
Or even just like there's too much baggage. I've seen too many memes.
It's like,
I've
I don't
seen
want
too
to
many
watch 1
references.
out of 13, and like, it's hard to take Freddy Krueger serious. Go watch this. This is like what I wish Friday the 13th Part 1 was, and it's not.
Enjoy your lipstick, doll face. Good night.
Well, old Reedsy, we're on to our number 3 movie.
Our final movie of the night, the only movie that you and I had both seen coming into this, and the only time we'd both seen it was when we watched it together. I'd never seen it outside of that, so we've now both watched this twice, only with each other.
Yeah.
And that's Satan's Little Helper. Hey everyone, this is Editor Reed. A little bit of bad news. Our Satan's Little Helper discussion actually got copyright claimed on YouTube. We've tried to work our way around it, and we can't show any of the clips from that movie. So this part of the video is going to end here. What we've done is uploaded the full video with the Satan's Little Helper discussion to our Patreon, where you can watch it for free. So the link's right here. If you want to check out our Satan's Little Helper discussion, just go ahead and click the link. It's a very funny segment. The movie is ridiculous, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's a lot of fun. But for this YouTube video, I'm now going to have to very awkwardly cut to the end of the video.
Well, we did it.
We did it. We talked about 3 random Halloween horror movies that no one asked us to talk about.
3 little micro-green takes for you on this lovely Halloween Eve.
Micro-green. Good. That's good.
I was even on purpose.
Now you don't really care about Halloween the way I do. You're not a little freaky Halloween boy like myself.
I like
However,
it once a year.
These 3 movies.
Yeah.
Which of these could you see adding to your October Halloween watch list, Avery?
I mean, Night of the Demons is easy.
Yeah.
Like, I think anyone and everyone should if you're getting together and want to watch a Halloween movie, and you're okay to see some upsetting things. There's some upsetting things in that movie. That's the only caveat. This is worth a watch.
Yeah.
It's a fun one. It's also one that you're not going to ruin it if you need to go walk over and have a pee and grab a caramel apple and go chat with your friend.
Yeah.
And come back. You're going to get...
You'll get the gist of it.
You're not going to lose track of the movie.
No. Yeah.
I had a ton of fun watching it, and I would absolutely watch it again. I think it'd be a really fun rewatch, which I don't think of a lot of movies.
Yeah, I think it was the clear standout. I think if you're like someone who really loves Halloween content, all 3 of these are worth seeking out. Like if you've kind of watched everything you think there is to watch and you haven't seen these, check them all out. But definitely Night of the Demons stands out as like we definitely could have done a deep dive on it.
Oh yeah.
There's enough meat on that bone to do a full discussion, and that was a clear winner of the night, I think.
Well, I'm gonna call Hollywood out a little bit. Like, stuff doesn't feel Halloweeny anymore. Neither the big mainstream horror nor the indie darling horror. None of it's Halloweeny anymore.
Yeah, the last one I can think of is like Cobweb.
Yeah,
which is like 2 years old and super low budget. And like, yeah, not a lot of movies try to be Halloween movies, except our good friends at Terrifier. Looking forward to Terrifier 3 this Halloween.
Well, that's a Christmas movie.
It is. I think it's, yeah, that one's he's gonna kill Santa, I think.
Yeah.
But in general, Terrifier feels like carrying on the spirit of these movies, of preserving that like old 80s B-movie campy, fun Halloween horror. Not taking yourself too seriously and having
Definitely
fun
less
with it.
accessible than something like this.
Certainly. But yeah, and that's not like Hollywood.
No.
Like that's, I think it's still funded by Kickstarters and things like that.
Honestly,
so.
if The Nun 4 came out and it was just like actually set in a Halloweeny haunted house in October, I'd be much more interested.
I'm slowly converting him.
There you go.
I'm pretty easy to please. Like you throw a pumpkin in the back of the shot, and I'm like, Halloween movie. Put it on the list. That's all it takes. One pumpkin, one jack-o'-lantern. Not a neutral pumpkin. It's got to have a face, but I'm pretty easy to please.
Yeah. Or if it's a bunch of regular pumpkins, if they're in the
If
field.
there's a bunch, yeah.
If they're
yeah,
in the field.
Yeah, if it's a patch.
Right.
You got a patch of them. It's fine.
We'll chart all this out. We'll have
Yeah.
all like the thresholds and breakpoints for you.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Include in the description.
Patreon exclusive. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We hope you check these movies out for your spooky October.
We'd also love some recommendations. I mean, we haven't seen every movie in the world, although he's close with the horror movies. But if you think there's some movies that deserve to be in this conversation, some little underrated, out of the way, Halloweeny vibes gems, we'd love to hear about them.
Give them to us, because I go hunting for them every Halloween season. And if you can give us some more little treats.
If you can find one Reed's never seen and heard of that he enjoys, then we will mail you a pumpkin.
We will do a video on it, most likely.
We'll probably do a video on it.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Halloween. More Halloween content to come later in October with our big Halloween deep dive, so stay tuned. Check out our Patreon if you haven't already. Lots of fun stuff over there. And happy Halloween.